I'm Camille Harrington. I'm 28 years old, and I'm standing in a designer gown that costs more than most Charleston townhomes, holding a microphone that's about to shatter everything my parents spent a lifetime building. 6 months ago, I was forced into marrying a man my family called a nobody. They said it was time I learned humility, that after what I did, I needed to be realigned. My mother, Diane, said it during my wedding dress fitting like it was a script she'd rehearsed for years. This is where you belong now. But what they never imagined was that the man they chose to humble me, Noah Bell, was carrying a truth that would unravel their legacy. That he wasn't what he appeared to be. That I wasn't the disgrace they believed. That the fall they orchestrated would be the very thing that taught me how to rise on my own terms. And tonight I take the mic at the Harrington Foundation's 35th anniversary gala, where Charleston's elite are sipping champagne under chandeliers and pretending we're still the untouchable family on the hill. What they don't know is that I'm about to speak. Before I tell you how I brought my parents to their knees, how I turned their carefully crafted redemption arc into a revelation, let me ask you something. Have you ever been underestimated by the very people who were supposed to love you the most? Then you'll understand why I'm here. Growing up as Camille Harrington meant never questioning the image. Our family estate sat like a crown jewel above the Battery, an architectural monument to generational wealth and Southern legacy. My father, Graham, a retired judge turned consultant for political candidates, carried the Harrington name into cable newsrooms and elite golf clubs. My mother, Diane, turned philanthropy into personal power, weaving herself into every board, gala, and charity auction that mattered. From the moment I could walk, I was in training. Piano recitals by 6, debutante etiquette by 9, fluent in French and conversational in 3 other languages by high school. By 20, I had graduated from Dartmouth and was being groomed for public relations at Harrington Media, the family's legacy firm. But I had a secret. I didn't want their world. Not the pearls, not the prestige, and not the performance. I wanted something of my own, something real, which is why at 27, I made the biggest mistake of my life, or so they thought. I opened a startup, a wellness tech brand with a vision to bring personalized mental health tools to young women across the South. It was bold, it was mine, and for a moment, it was working. Until it wasn't. Until the betrayal. Until the setup. And so 6 months later, I stand here in crimson silk and 4-inch heels, facing the crowd that once whispered about how far I'd fallen. But what they don't know, what no one in this ballroom knows, is that they're about to witness a very public resurrection. Because I didn't just survive, I learned the truth. And tonight, I'm handing it to them, one word at a time. There are families built on love, and there are families built on image. Ours was the latter, pristine, polished, and impenetrable. The Harringtons didn't just host galas, they were the gala. We didn't just give to charities, we founded them. And we didn't just care about appearances, we treated them like oxygen. Growing up in our white-columned mansion overlooking Charleston Harbor, I learned quickly that perfection wasn't a goal. It was an expectation. My mother, Diane, ran the house and our public lives with the precision of a military strategist. Her calendar was color-coded 3 months ahead. Her pearls always matched her lipstick, and her version of affection came in critiques wrapped as compliments. "Posture, Camille," she'd whisper under her breath, pinching the back of my arm as we posed for society photographers. "Thrusting your chin forward makes you look stubborn." Stubborn. Like my father, she'd say. Graham Harrington was Charleston royalty, a former federal judge, now the go-to media consultant for up-and-coming governors and senators. He was known for his steel gray hair, steelier gaze, and the ability to reduce grown men to stuttering apologies with one raised eyebrow. At home, he was distant. Not cruel, but cold. Like we were witnesses in a trial he didn't have time to cross-examine. My younger brother, Eli, was his shadow. Smart, strategic, the kind of man who knew how to charm a room without ever revealing a single real thought. He was being groomed for office, first state legislature, then Congress. "The legacy continues," my mother would say with a proud, forced smile whenever someone asked about him. As for me, I was the showpiece, the beauty, The face they presented when donors wanted elegance or authenticity. I was the one they paraded through debutante balls and holiday spreads in local magazines. "Camille's got the face of a queen," Diane would say, her hand resting possessively on my shoulder. "She'll marry well." But I didn't want to marry well. I wanted to be well. After graduating from Dartmouth with a double major in psychology and digital communications, I turned down the expected job at Harrington Media. Instead, I spent a year consulting for a mental health startup in Austin. It opened my eyes to something I'd never been encouraged to see: the power of creating something real, something helpful. When I returned home and pitched my own company, a wellness tech startup aimed at empowering young women in the South, my parents reacted like I'd announced I was joining a commune. "A wellness app?" my father scoffed, barely looking up from his newspaper. "That's not a career, Camille. That's a distraction." "You've always had such delicate feelings," Diane added over her morning grapefruit. "You don't want to expose yourself to failure, darling. It bruises people like you." But I persisted. I scraped together angel investors through former classmates, pulled branding help from a friend in San Francisco, and launched HaloWell out of a chic loft space downtown. For 3 glorious months, it thrived. Our analytics showed real traction. Clients were buzzing. We got covered in a regional magazine. And for the first time in my life, I felt powerful. And not because someone handed me the stage, but because I built it. Then came the silence. Then the emails bounced. Then the funds disappeared. Then Sabrina, my COO and closest friend, was gone. Just like that, HaloWell collapsed. And so did the last thread connecting me to my parents' tolerance. To them, I hadn't just failed. I'd committed the ultimate betrayal. I tried to become someone they didn't control. The headlines came first: Heiress's tech startup crashes in fraud scandal. Then came the silence. Diane stopped answering my calls. Graham's assistant told me he was in meetings for 2 weeks straight. Eli texted me exactly once. "Heard about HaloWell. Keep your head up." That was it. No support, no defense. Just the echo of a family retreating into damage control. The investors pulled out, the rest of my team scattered, and I stood in the wreckage of a dream with a lease I couldn't afford and a name that had become a punchline. But the final blow didn't come from the public. It came from inside our home. Diane summoned me to the house. No warm welcome, no darling, just an email forwarded by her assistant. When I arrived, our butler, Michael, wouldn't even meet my eye. The living room felt like a courtroom. My father in his usual armchair, elbows on knees like a judge at sentencing. Diane perched on the edge of the sofa, spine straight, face unreadable. Graham opened with the verdict. "We've assessed the situation. You're no longer in a position to represent this family publicly." "I didn't steal anything," I said, my voice cracking for the first time. "I was the one who was betrayed." Diane didn't blink. "And yet you are the headline." They laid it out in neat little phrases. Damaged reputation. No longer a reliable asset. Need for optics recovery. It wasn't just that I failed, it was that I had failed publicly. Then came the solution. "We've arranged a marriage," Diane said, as if offering an hors d'oeuvre. I laughed. I genuinely thought it was a joke. But Graham's jaw was tight, and Diane's eyes were lit with that cold flicker of strategic finality. "You'll marry Noah Bell, son of Reverend Lawrence Bell. He's a consultant. Low profile, respectable, uncontroversial." "You're serious?" I blinked, trying to process it. "You want me to marry some churchman's son like this is the 1800s? "He's not from our world," Diane said with a slight curl of her lip. "Which makes him safe. Containable. He won't expect anything extravagant." "And if I say no?" "You're welcome to leave," Graham said flatly. "But if you do, you'll do so with no financial support, no references, and no access to your trust. The Harrington name is a privilege, Camille. And privileges can be revoked." The word revoked echoed in my ears like a slamming cell door. I looked between them, these people who called themselves my parents, and felt something inside me fracture. Not just hurt, not just anger, something deeper, something like betrayal layered on betrayal. But they weren't done. We've also arranged for you to move into a more manageable apartment, Diane added, handing me a set of keys. It will encourage a simpler lifestyle. Noah has already agreed to help you settle in. That night, I packed my things while Michael, avoiding my gaze, supervised the movers. My apartment, technically owned by my parents, was swept clean. My wardrobe boxed, my car keys handed over, my bank accounts frozen. In less than 24 hours, I went from Camille Harrington, founder, socialite, daughter of Charleston's elite, to a cautionary tale with no assets, no allies, and an arranged engagement to a man I had never even met. But what I didn't know then is that Noah Bell, the nobody, wasn't who he seemed either, and neither was I. Noah Bell met me outside my new apartment building on a Tuesday morning. He wore a charcoal gray suit that was slightly too loose in the shoulders and held a manila envelope under one arm like he was dropping off documents, not preparing to meet his future wife. His expression was calm, bordering on unreadable. "Camille," he said, extending a hand. "It's good to finally meet you." I didn't take it. "This is absurd," I muttered, brushing past him. "I don't need help moving into a 2-bedroom exile." He didn't argue, just followed me in. The apartment was exactly what I expected. Beige walls, beige furniture, beige life. Functional, lifeless. Every piece had been chosen by Diane, down to the generic art prints on the walls and the uncomfortable decorative pillows. It screamed, "This is what you deserve now." "I understand this situation isn't ideal," Noah said, setting my boxes down gently. "But I think if we're respectful of each other's space, it can work." "Respectful?" I scoffed. "We're strangers. This isn't a roommate ad. It's a punishment." He didn't flinch. "Maybe. But we both agreed to this. Me willingly, you under pressure." That stopped me. "You agreed to this?" He shrugged, unbothered. "Your parents' lawyer reached out. I said yes. I have my reasons." I studied him then. Plain brown hair. No cologne. A watch that looked like it came from a mid-tier department store. He was unremarkable. The kind of man who disappeared into a crowd. Safe. Exactly what Diane wanted. And yet, there was something unsettling about his steadiness. His lack of reaction to my hostility. Like he was observing, not engaging. Like he had control of the room, not me. "You really think this will be functional?" I asked. "I think we can coexist," he said simply. "We don't have to pretend anything." After he left, I explored the apartment. His side of the closet was minimal. His books were mostly financial, economics, law, some tech industry manuals. The only personal item was a photograph of a woman in nurse scrubs standing in front of a whitewashed porch. His mother, maybe. There was no picture of a father. The next day, we had dinner. At Diane's insistence, of course. A get-to-know-your-fiancé dinner at a mid-range bistro where no one we knew would be seen. He arrived in the same suit. He ordered grilled salmon. He ate slowly, politely. "Do you even want to get married?" I asked halfway through. He set his fork down and looked me dead in the eye. "I think this situation benefits both of us. I can offer you security and space. You can avoid complete exile. Maybe in time we learn something. Or we don't. But we get through it with dignity." "Dignity?" I laughed bitterly. "You're describing my arranged marriage like a business merger." He didn't blink. "I've had worse deals." That night, as I unpacked alone, I heard his voice through the thin wall. Low, confident, very different from the soft-spoken man I'd eaten dinner with. "Move the meeting to Thursday." "Yes. Tell them I want the acquisition docs reviewed before close of Tokyo Market. I'll sign off by 10. I moved closer to the wall. "Tokyo Market? Acquisition?" I didn't know much, but I knew that wasn't small-time consultant talk. Suddenly, Noah Bell didn't feel so harmless. And for the first time since this charade began, I wondered, who exactly had I married? 3 weeks into our quiet arrangement, I found myself watching Noah Bell the way a detective watches a suspect. He left the apartment early every morning in the same modest suits and returned each night with takeout. Never fast food, always from restaurants just slightly too nice for someone supposedly earning an entry-level consultant salary. His side of the closet now held 3 blazers from brands that didn't scream status, but whispered precision. And every night at around 11, he disappeared into the small office we shared and locked the door. I tried not to care. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was only here until I could figure out how to get out. But then the package arrived. A slim envelope with no return address, addressed to Monsieur Bell. I was about to toss it onto the counter when I noticed the shipping label. From Singapore. Singapore. Again. I froze. That was the second time in a week I'd seen that city's name tied to him. The first was on a document that briefly flashed on his laptop screen when I passed behind him. It was labeled SGR Holdings, Consolidation Phase 2. What kind of small-town consultant was coordinating anything in Singapore? That night, after he retreated into his office, I waited. Until his voice grew hushed and muffled. Until I could hear the tapping of keys and the rustle of paper. Until I saw the faint glow under the door. And I did something I hadn't done since I was a child sneaking into Diane's study. I tried the doorknob. It was unlocked. Inside, the office didn't match the rest of our bland little apartment. 3 ultra-wide monitors sat on a long desk. An encrypted USB device blinked from one port. A Bloomberg terminal loaded real-time market analytics. And Noah, now wearing a tailored navy button-down, sat calmly, speaking into a headset. Hold the Eastern European release. I want confirmation on currency fluctuation before authorizing the Prague expansion. I didn't breathe. When he finally noticed me, he didn't jump. He just looked over slowly and removed the headset. I was wondering how long it would take, he said. Take for what? I asked, my voice suddenly smaller than I wanted. For you to start asking the right questions. I stared at him. The monitors, the documents, the confidence I'd never seen before. You're not a junior consultant. No, he said simply, standing and walking toward me. I'm not. Then who are you? Noah reached into the drawer beside him, pulled out a slim black folder, and handed it to me. Inside was a magazine profile. Business frontline. Headline, The Phantom Founder of Belmont Equity. Inside the Rise of a Billion-Dollar Ghost. A grayscale photo showed the back of a man's head in a boardroom. My fingers trembled as I looked up at him. You're him. Belmont. That's you. He nodded. Noah Bell, founder and CEO. Net worth last I checked? About $11.3 billion. I stepped back. Why the act? Why marry me? Why pretend to be like this? He exhaled slowly, then looked me dead in the eye. Because your family approached me. I was a ghost to them, a safe, quiet man to marry their disgraced daughter. But I'd done business with your father's associates. I had questions. Questions? I wanted to know why a promising startup, yours, imploded under a fraudster who should never have passed even basic vetting. I blinked. You investigated me? I investigated the collapse, he said softly. And I found something. Something you need to see. He clicked a few keys. A bank record appeared. A transfer from the Diane Harrington Foundation to an entity registered under Cho Consulting. My blood ran cold. Sabrina, I whispered. He nodded. Your mother paid her, right before Sabrina vanished. I collapsed into the chair behind me. They didn't just abandon me. They set me up. Noah crouched beside me. Camille, your failure wasn't an accident. It was planned. I met his eyes. And in that moment, I knew 2 things. 1, my parents hadn't just taken away my freedom. They had tried to erase my future. And 2, this man, the stranger they forced into my life, might just be the one to help me take it all back. Revenge isn't a burst of rage. It's a slow, sharpened thing, a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. And I had just been handed the blade. The next morning, Noah and I sat across from each other at our small kitchen table, but the air between us had changed. No more performance, no more pretense, only purpose. He slid a tablet toward me. We build the truth, brick by brick. What followed were 2 weeks of the most intense education I'd ever endured. rivaling my time at Dartmouth, eclipsing every corporate internship my mother had arranged. Noah became a different man in those sessions, calculated, brilliant, patient. He brought in a woman named Marla Quinn, Belmont Equity's legal strategist. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and 10 times more terror-beansing than any of my professors. "She's not just the daughter of privilege anymore," Marla said on day 3. "We'll need her to hold frame when this breaks. No emotion, no theatrics, just facts." I trained like I was preparing for war. Marla taught me how to deliver damning evidence without losing composure, how to maintain authority in a room where your enemies outnumber your allies, how to speak in front of power and be power. Meanwhile, Noah's tech director, Kendrick, helped us retrieve archived documents, emails, wire transfers, shell company records, all traced through the Diane Harrington Foundation. My mother hadn't just sabotaged me. She'd engineered my fall. Sabrina Cho had been paid to infiltrate Halowell, to gain my trust, access my investors, and tank the company once it began to thrive, then disappear. It was all part of a larger strategy. Eliminate my independence, discredit my instincts, and fold me back into the Harrington machine through the safe PR stunt of a quiet, humiliating marriage. "Your mother's currency is narrative," Noah told me. "So we don't just break it, we rewrite it." The perfect opportunity came dressed in crystal chandeliers and white linen invitations. The Harrington Foundation's 35th anniversary gala, Diane's masterpiece. The event where Charleston's elite would raise glasses to the couple who stood for integrity and legacy. That was where we would burn it all down. Noah made the preparations quietly. A discreet team from Belmont's private division handled logistics, entry points, stage access, audiovisual overrides. Marla drafted the timing sequence for the document drops. Kendrick ensured there would be no shutting down the screens once they went live. I focused on the speech, not to defend myself, to reclaim myself. Kayla, the only friend I had left from my old world, responded to my message with a single line, "Tell me when and where. I'm with you." And just like that, I had one witness from the inside. The night before the gala, I stood in front of the mirror in our tiny apartment, rehearsing the final lines. My crimson gown hung beside me, sharp, sculpted, unapproved by Diane. Noah appeared in the doorway, watching me silently. "Do you think it's enough?" I asked. He stepped closer. "I think when they look back on that stage tomorrow night," he said quietly, "they won't remember the chandelier, or the orchestra, or the donors. They'll remember you." I nodded, breath catching in my throat. Tomorrow the mask would fall. And I would speak, not as the obedient daughter, but as the woman they tried to erase. The Four Seasons ballroom gleamed like a palace. Crystal chandeliers reflected on polished marble floors, and gold-accented floral towers framed the entrance like gates to a kingdom my mother believed she ruled. I arrived fashionably late, on purpose. Arm in arm with Noah, dressed in a midnight tuxedo that now matched his quiet authority, I walked into the lion's den. Conversations dropped mid-sentence. Faces turned. I could feel it, the curiosity, the judgment, the math happening behind every narrowed eye. "That's Camille? Why the red dress? Why does Noah look like he owns the place?" "Because he does." Kayla spotted me from across the room and smiled, eyes sparkling with nerves and pride. She wore deep navy, classy, elegant. But her earrings were bold, defiant, our signal. We were ready. My mother approached us first. Her smile was the tight-lipped one she used for society women she hated but needed. "Camille," she said, gaze skating over my dress. "Bold choice." "Thank you," I replied. "It's original. Like tonight." She glanced at Noah, then back at me. "I hope you've adjusted." Noah offered her a gentle, polite smile. "More than adjusted. Camille's been thriving." Diane's expression froze for a flicker of a second. Then came Graham, his scotch already half gone, his pride still fully intact. "I see you're here. Try not to make a scene tonight." "Wouldn't dream of it," I said sweetly. Scenes tend to reveal more than they intend. My cue came precisely at 8:15. The orchestra softened. The host tapped the mic. "And now, a few words from someone very special to the Harrington legacy." My mother's script. Her moment, her control. Except this time, I was writing the ending. I walked onto the stage as the screens behind me shimmered to life. "Good evening," I began, voice steady, slow. "I'm Camille Harrington. You may know me as the daughter of tonight's hosts. You may also know me as the disgraced founder of a failed tech startup." Nervous laughter trickled around the room. My mother, seated near the front, tensed. "What you don't know," I continued, "is that my failure wasn't an accident. It was designed." I gestured to the screens. The room dimmed. Documents appeared. Bank transfers, emails, timestamps. One by one, the details of my sabotage unfolded. Payments from the Diane Harrington Foundation to shell companies tied to Sabrina Cho. Wire instructions sent just days before my COO vanished with investor funds. My mother stood abruptly. "This is not the time or place." "It's exactly the time," I said, never raising my voice. "Because for the first time in my life, I get to speak without permission." Graham stood too, but Noah, calm, commanding, walked onto the stage beside me. "Allow me to properly introduce myself," he said. "Noah Bell, founder and CEO of Belmont Equity." Gasps rolled like thunder across the ballroom. I turned back to the microphone. The man my parents chose to humble me turned out to be one of the most powerful investors in this country. And the truth he helped me uncover tonight isn't just about betrayal. It's about ownership. Ownership of my story, my name, my future. Diane began pushing toward the stage. Security, Noah's security, stepped discreetly into place. "You manipulated your own daughter's downfall for image control," I said, facing her fully now. "You engineered my erasure. And you taught me that the only way to survive was to become someone you couldn't control." Behind me, the screens displayed the final slide, a side-by-side comparison of my boutique's original business plan with current industry analysis showing its viability. Dead silence. Then, scattered applause. Then more. Then rising, sustained applause as my mother stopped mid-step, face pale beneath perfect makeup. Beside me, Noah didn't smile. He didn't need to. We had just taken back the narrative. "And the mic?" I set it down gently, letting the weight of truth echo louder than any thunderous drop. By Monday morning, the headlines had changed. "Harrington legacy shaken by daughter's bombshell revelation. Phantom billionaire revealed as heiress's husband. Diane Harrington's charity linked to corporate sabotage." No longer the disgrace. No longer the cautionary tale. Now, I was the woman who stood at a podium and turned silence into justice. Diane withdrew from her boards within 72 hours. The Harrington Foundation froze public operations. My father was quietly replaced as a strategic advisor for 3 political campaigns. And Sabrina, she was extradited from Costa Rica before the end of the week. Noah's legal team made sure of it. Charleston society reacted like it always does, with controlled chaos. Some friends returned with apology texts, others disappeared entirely. But the ones who stayed, they were the ones who saw me, not just my family name. One of them was Kayla. A week after the gala, she moved out of my parents' house. Noah and I helped carry boxes into her new apartment, her first real space chosen for herself, by herself. "I thought I'd feel lost," she said, placing a small photo of us on her bookshelf. "But honestly, I've never felt more awake." Another came in the form of Olivia Jang, a designer I'd once mentored during my boutique days. She called me the night after the fallout. "They tried to erase you," she said. "Let's rebuild you louder." Together, we drafted a plan. The Oriel Collective, a new company, a fashion tech hybrid, a place where young creators, especially women shut out by legacy systems, could launch with funding, education, and protection. A boutique, yes, but one with teeth. Noah refused to fund it as a favor. "This is not charity," he said, handing me the paperwork. "This is an investment. You are not a risk, you are an asset. And your vision deserves structure, not sympathy." By fall, the Oriel Collective opened 2 floors above a wellness center downtown. It was part workspace, part gallery, and fully alive. Kayla joined as head of operations. Olivia led creative. I took the role of executive director and mentor. building not just aesthetics, but systems of support for voices like mine. Voices that had been silenced, redirected, or manipulated by family legacies too fragile to allow independence. As for Noah, he finally moved into his own home, the real one. A penthouse overlooking the Ashley River, with an entire wall of books and a rooftop garden where he grew herbs for his surprisingly excellent cooking. One evening, as the city glittered beneath us, he handed me a simple ring. No diamond, no flash, just textured gold forged from meteorite. "A second proposal," he said. "No arrangements, no obligations, just choice." I didn't hesitate. "Yes?" We held the ceremony on the rooftop 6 weeks later. 20 people. No press, no pretense. Just us. Friends, chosen family, and a quiet vow between two people who had found something extraordinary in the ashes. Not rescue, not revenge. Partnership. My parents were invited. They came, surprisingly, sat quietly in the back, hands folded, eyes wary. Diane didn't wear pearls. Graham didn't give a speech. After the ceremony, she approached. Her voice was low, controlled. "The dress suits you." It was all she could manage. "Thank you for coming," I replied, and meant it. Later that evening, I watched Noah refill wine glasses and Kayla laugh until she cried, and I realized something I hadn't dared to believe. I was free. Not because I burned the house down, but because I stopped needing its approval. Because I finally saw that what they built was never a home. It was a theater. And I walked off the stage. Now, I write my own script. No spotlights, no applause, just light and growth. And love born not from arrangement, but recognition. So, to anyone who has been silenced by the people who should have lifted you, to anyone who's been forced to become small so others could feel large, to anyone who's been told this is where you belong, I'm here to tell you, you get to move, you get to rise. And when you do, make sure they hear your voice. Because sometimes the microphone they handed you to play their script becomes the very thing that tells your truth.